I give the floor to Robyn. If she's not too moved by all these tokens of intellectual esteem and affection.
Thank you, Sylvie. I'll do my best. This is very much like an out-of-body experience. Someone said to me, it'll be like if you were at your own funeral listening to it. That's exactly what it's like. My overall impression of it is, deep, intense gratitude, which I'm going to try to articulate in some detail in a minute. But also, damn, I wrote a lot. 36 years, it is a long time. And that's why, Helena, that's why we're not middle-aged anymore. We've been doing this a long, long time. I just have very brief responses to each of you. To Sujay Kim, while you were speaking, all I could think was, I feel heard. You heard me. You got it. And everybody who's a scholar knows how rare that is. To really get the sense that somebody understood what you were saying and used it, for the forces of good. I'm so grateful to you for that. I also wanted to say it's true. I'm not scared of anything. I'm not afraid of anything. And that probably does have something to do with why I work the way I do. Nothing scares me. I wasn't even scared to do this, just freaked out. To Helena, or about Helena, I want to say, yes, of course, that was a gorgeous essay. What I always say about our collaboration and the way we go over those sentences together is that Helena's writing is beautiful and mine is correct. and I think that the resulting sentences are beautiful. I'm so proud of the things that we've written together. But yeah, my grammar's much stronger. Her typos are otherworldly. And I wanted to say why Helena's never heard me sing is because I'm not a soloist. I sing in choirs. And the reason that she's never heard me sing is because I want her to continue describing me as a talented and practiced singer. Well, you have to come and hear me in a group if you're interested in that. I don't sing solos. I love Jim's rabbinical lens. I always have to remember that. I love that Sue quoted Jim saying at Project Narrative Summer Institute that the feminists won. And I love, Jim, that your talk really demonstrated what you mean by that. And I take you seriously when you say narratology would have gone the way of new historicism, even deconstruction. Like those are such pressing questions as structuralism in the early 80s. And it was like this big battlefield where we were all duking it out for what was going to be the most important approach or the one that might be the most influential. And at the time, narratology was by far the most uncool, which is one reason why the feminists did not want to talk to us, because they were cool, we were not cool. I'm using a we and they as speaking as a narratologist, but hey, I was both. And so it's so fascinating to me, Jim, that we kept it going. And I do think it was that turn to the contextual, turn to the situated, turn to history, turn to intersectionality that made it possible for this to keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I so appreciate you acknowledging that in this very public way. Everybody's saying how clear my writing is, and I've certainly been told that my whole career, how clear I am when I'm speaking. I've often thought privately that really what I am is a little simple-minded. Like I don't want to complicate what I'm trying to say. To me, making it obscure, or I remember, who was it that said post-structuralists would rather italicize than define? That sounds to me like Joe Lichtback. It might have been him, but yeah, so I definitely am the one who wants to define and not to italicize. You won't find any term italicized in my work unless it's just for emphasis. So yes, I mean, this was beyond my wildest dreams. To be here at all is beyond my wildest dreams. Because I keep thinking about what I expected when I first went to the first narrative conference it was the second conference, but my first was in the spring of 1987 in Columbus. And I was thinking about, I would like to share with you the story of how my career got started, because what's really interesting to me is that all the people who have been the most formative in my work, I met or encountered in this, you know, on the level of academic discourse between 1984 and 1987, that spring of 87. Everything that made me the scholar I am happened between those years. And I think almost all the people involved, except one who died, are present either physically or virtually with us today. So I would say that I should say a little bit about my my graduate mentor, Ian Watt. When I applied to graduate school, I applied to the University of Chicago and Stanford. I wanted to work with Watt or Booth. I got money from Stanford, so that's where I went. And I literally remember Watt saying to me once, "You don't seem to be as scared of me as all the other graduate students are." Like, nope, not even Ian Watt scared me. But I do remember that when I've told this story before, when I went to him with my idea for my dissertation, which was the engaging narrator. I had the idea of the difference between an engaging and a distancing narrator in these mid-19th century novels. I wasn't thinking about gender at all. I mean, my mentor was Ian Watt. It didn't even occur to me to think about that. So I described to him my argument. He said, "Oh, so it's to be a sort of a footnote to the rhetoric of fiction." That's what he said. And you know what? In a way, he was right, because I did not learn anything about narratology in graduate school or about feminist theory. I was in a very traditional program there. The Rise of the Novel was the gold standard still in that program in the late 70s. So the first thing that happened to me was I went and got this job at the University of Vermont. Thank goodness. It was as hard then as it is now to land a job. And I met this wonderful colleague, the professor of French, Philippe Carrard. And I talked to him a lot about my work. And I gave him a draft of what was to become that PMLA essay that was based on my dissertation. And I still can see him in my mind's eye saying to me, after he read it, "You have a point." But you need narratology to frame this argument. And he handed me Jerry Prince's toward introduction to the narrative. And that changed everything. There was a language that I could use to talk about the thing that I was trying to do. And that was absolutely, that's Jerry's language. He's still doing it. He's still creating for us new categories, new concepts, ways of describing those phenomena that to me are the most important parts of reading. So then I revised that essay using Jerry's work and Philippe's mentorship, and I sent it to PMLA, and the readers that I got, PMLA is blind submission, so they didn't know who that was. The readers I got were Barbara Johnson and Peter Brooks. And they got it. They loved it. I got, it was like no revisions. Yeah, we'll take it. They published it in PMLA. And then Barbara Johnson then was instrumental in getting me to this really fantastic year at Harvard as a junior faculty fellow, Mellon faculty fellow. And it was while I was there at Harvard that everything happened that made this career. The first thing that happened was the story that Sue told about this debate in style that made us into allies in precisely the way that she's described. I found someone else who was asking the same questions I was asking. Oh, I forgot to say, Barbara Johnson said in her comments that it's great, she's got a point, it's really lucid, it's totally persuasive. She said, "I wonder why all the authors that she writes about as engaging narrators are women and the distancing narrators are men." And I said, duh, I literally had not thought about that. And so I spent my year at Harvard learning feminism and feminist literary critical theory, which I'd never ever read. And then engaging with Sue, and that made a big difference in the way that I thought about that going on into revising my book, which is what that fellowship was for, to write gender conventions. So that was the same year that I went to my first narrative conference. And I wrote a proposal about the engaging narrator. The narrative conference was a new thing, and that was a big conference. I know we had like 8 plenary speakers, and they were all the big names, you know, in all kinds of novel and narrative studies. And I sent that proposal in, and Jim, of course, was the conference organizer that year. And he sent the proposal back saying, yes, we'd like to have you here. I have a few suggestions on your project. Anybody who's ever worked with Jim knows Jim has comments. He has comments, and they were great, you know. But I was like, who does that? So, you know, that was inviting me in, right, to the very ground level of this organization and of this collaboration that is the Narrative Society. And I'm infinitely grateful to him for engaging me from the very first in that way. And then the other thing that happened that year was I met Helena Mickey. Oh my God, she was the chair of the feminist seminar at the Center for Literary and Cultural Studies that year. She was teaching at Brandeis. She was just a baby. What were you, 19? but she was the head of the feminist seminar, and she started a writing group, which I joined. And that writing group with Beth Kowaleski Wallace and Helena and I went on for about 10 years. And that's how our collaborations got started and our friendship. And Helena is, I think, my better half, academically speaking. So those are the particular people that I wanted to locate at the start of my career. But I want to say something more broadly about the rest of those 30 however many years. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to employ the famous direct address. And I want you who are listening to me here in person or in cyberspace to know that I am addressing you, flesh and blood listeners. You're the bodies that are in this room and that are out there listening. I'm talking to you. And I want to say that if I ever taught you or mentored you or coached you at Project Narrative Summer Institute, if you ever heard me read a paper at a conference or at a university, if you ever asked me a question in a Q&A, or if you ever came up and approached me after a panel, if you ever read a conference paper that I heard, or a paper at a university, if you and I ever met over coffee or over drinks, last time I had a drink at the Narrative Conference was in 1988, but we go out for drinks, right? Or a meal, and this includes my newcomers from last night. If you ever cited my work, or you ever taught a piece of my writing to your students, if you ever collaborated with me, and I hesitate to name these names, I'm going to do it, but I'm worried that I might leave somebody out because so many people have been so generous in sharing their work with me and working alongside me. But the names that I can remember are Georgia Barbara Perkins, Irene Candace, Diane Price-Herndl, Brian Richardson, Peter Rabinowitz, David Herman, wherever you are, David, in the universe, Dorothea Bjerke, Amy Schumann, Zara Dinnen, Sean O'Sullivan. There are probably others, and I so apologize if I forgot someone. But if you ever wrote something with me, all these yous that I just identified, you are my lifetime achievement. And this is what an academic career is, right? It's all about interaction. It's all about connection. It's all about listening and getting it and responding. And I'm really happy and proud to be able to say that so many of the people I have in mind in this address are in this room, or I hope out there. I see you, Brian McHale. it's just beyond thrilling to be able to see this in public and to feel so heard. So thank you so much, everybody.
Then we have 7 minutes left for questions or comments. Am I correct? Sue, perhaps you can organize that on your side.
So we'll alternate in the room and online. I will try not to have a good cry now, but I want to thank you, Robyn, for your amazing work. I certainly wouldn't be part of narrative theory without it. I mentioned when we honored Sue that Toward a Feminist Narratology brought me into narrative theory, but I found it in feminism because I was looking for the thing. I was looking as a graduate student in my master's program for the thing that the words to do what I wanted to do and the structure to make sense of what I wanted to say about gender. And I found it there, but then so much of both of your work has been influential, but especially your work has been something that I have built on. But also, you've been so encouraging from my time in Dickens summer camp. I was a really young graduate student at Dickens Universe, which was the first time I met you in person, to when you invited me to be part of a panel where you were calling for continuing to do feminist studies, that it wasn't over yet, that we still needed to do this. When I was in my very first year as an assistant professor, and frankly quite terrified to be part of a panel with the two of you. I think my most frightening moment as a professional was doing a presentation about certain narration where I was expanding your theory, and you walked into the room at the narrative conference to hear that talk, and I have to keep talking. I have to keep functioning now. But you have been nothing but encouraging. In fact, you pushed me often to make my work deeper and to push further and to be more assertive in what I was trying to do. And I think that's what's so amazing about your work. That it really has created this space for a whole generation of people to come after. And that will continue. And this isn't your funeral dirge, because you're still doing that. You're still continuing to build that work. And this is not the end of your lifetime achievement. It's just a milestone because it's already so amazing. But thank you for that work. Thank you for that encouragement. Thank you for being the generous scholar that you are for so many of us. So next we'll go to Elizabeth Alsop online. Oh, were you applying?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Does someone have an online? No? Okay.
So, Ray?
Everyone's talked about your theory. I want to talk about your teaching because I had the incredible good fortune to be your undergraduate student as well as your graduate student, as well as your assistant in the Humanities Center. And you are not just literally the reason I'm at narrative theory conferences. You're the reason I got a master's degree and a doctorate and pursued a career in education. So thanks a lot for that. As I was reminded a few days ago when I pulled out my copy of Narrative Dynamics to check a Paul Ricoeur quote for my own paper that I'm giving, and I saw that you had signed it. It was once your copy that you had given to me. I don't remember when you did that, but you gave me a lot of books, and all of them brought me here. I still say the most important conversation I've had in my entire life is when you sat me down when I was 19 said that you were concerned I was becoming post-feminist. I was hanging out with a really bad crowd. And you said you were not going to let that happen. I will never forget that. You were wearing a short black skirt, tall black boots, and the brightest pink fishnets I've ever seen. We talked for 2 hours. You told me the history of feminism. You helped me carve out what it all meant to me then in whatever year it was. And it is still the most important conversation I've ever had. I try to do that for my own students when I see them being led astray. The day that I decided to go to graduate school was in your serial lit seminar, when everyone else in the class was laughing at me because I kept the books in the freezer so I wouldn't read ahead. And you straight faced looked me in the eye and said, when you're ready for graduate school, I am writing your recommendation. And you did, to my PhD program as well. And as your assistant in the Humanities Center, I learned so much from you. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I was appointed to the executive council at my university's Humanities Center and as a lead programming associate. And the dean who appointed me, whose career, pre-administrative career was in psychology, but she's remarkably well-read, said to me, if Robyn Warhol trusted you to do that job, I can trust you too. I'm not as smart as her, but I'm not in it. So Robyn, thank you for helping me figure out who I wanted to be. I know I'm not the only student of yours who has stories. Although I might be the only one who has books.
Together, but I want to say something very specifically to all of you because Robyn and I shared a view. When I went to my very first narrative conference as a graduate student, I was planning to write this comprehensive study of the second person, and I didn't know who Robyn Warhol was. I just went to that paper because it was obviously about the second person. And Robyn delivered this wonderful paper. It was so articulate, and I thought, shit. So I had to figure out a slightly different way of doing it, and luckily it led to more contact with you. But if you happen to have already heard your dissertation topic at this conference, don't hesitate. So thank you.
One more question.
Let's just clap.
Okay. So we will continue the festivities in the Otters restaurant, which is just that way with the awards and business dinner, where there is, Chichester says, is happy to host us. There will be wine. So, thank you so much.